Okay. Okay. Masasiyiti Yuhan online phone. Stuye Juno de Kakpikinge. You coming to Juno next semester?
Yeah, I think so.
It'd be awesome. Ah. Yes. That's how I feel when I walk up the stairs from my office. Woo.
Masayeti. Kleshwassa. Oh, I'm sorry, Brad.
All right.
And I was going to try to say when I walked in the door, it's not sunny out. I forgot. Klesh, how they gone?
Yeah, we'll get into, so as far as the sort of plan, we got 2 days left. We'll probably kind of take it easy. We'll just review, do a walkthrough of the whole thing that we've done. We've gotten through 3 chapters of beginning Tlingit, but we've also thrown an additional chapter in there to look at what do you have, what do I have. So we're going to review those things, and then I'm going to talk to you also about just methods of staying in the language or keeping the language around you. So what I've been telling the other class, I said, hey, so next week after you take your last final, why don't you just stop speaking in English until we come back, right? And so nobody would do that, right? That's like, it's impossible to even really think of, or to even, I mean, I don't know, you can try it. And just come hang out at our house, I guess, the whole time we'll speak English. But, so just try and find ways to keep the language around you. And I think that's really key so that when you come back next semester, it's not like you're like, oh yeah, there's this thing, because a big part of language learning is just convincing your brain, which is, some of you, you speak another language, so it's probably different for you, but if you grow up and you have one language that you speak, that language, and if it's American English, that American English kind of doesn't want anything else. It's sort of like my youngest daughter's in this phase right now, where like if she has something and her sister comes up, she's like, ah! And that's kind of what English does. Ah! Right? It makes that noise. My brain, hey, or no, I guess. So we got to convince it to share its space, and it's intellectual space, it's spiritual space, mental space. It's all of these different things. And so as we sort of, the goal here is learning a bunch of stuff, filling in the blanks with things, but then now we're starting to sort of cut things into little pieces and figure out how they work so you can reconstruct them in your mind. Another big part, and what we'll spend some time next semester doing, is how the thought patterns are different. We'll look at speeches, we'll look at stories, and we'll look really closely at the way that fluent speakers put the language together. Because it always, it never fails that I'll try and think of how to say something. Like, I couldn't find, what was it? I couldn't find a word, I can't remember what the context, I have to look it up. But I think I couldn't find the word for generous or something like that. And I was trying to work with Nora, and then the word that she gave me was isn't stingy, or something like that, right? But it really just blew me away. And with Tlingit, there's certain things, as we sort of look at how the verbs function, sometimes there's not an actual verb for something, but instead it's sort of metaphorical. For example, you say, Jutut wuchich, he or she is worried about it, or achtut wuchich, I'm worried about it. Itut wuchich, you're worried about it. So that's one where we conjugate it by switching the possessive pronoun. But what it means is to be worried. But the literal translation is like something is running around inside that person, right? And that's the way that Tlingit looks at things. Some of these things to be angry is you're sitting right next to anger, right? It's like you're sitting down, kind of pouting. There's another one, itushauz, you're pouting. You're too wild inside. You know, she'uz means to be noisy or lively or crazy. Um, One of my favorite elders is in Carcross, and her name is She'uz Tla, and I always tell her the mother of crazy. She likes to say it's lively, it's like noisy. You know? She's a lot of fun to work with. I was talking about my great grandfather, and I was giving this. We're talking in Tlingit, and I said that kid plain, blah blah blah, and she's like, "Did you just call me your big grandma?" So she's really fun and funny. But there's a number of there's some games, there's some different stuff. I'm going to spend some time next week and work on some of the games that I've been trying to develop. Because there's a couple of things I'm suspicious of. But if you have a deck of Uno cards, I've got the instructions for playing Uno in Tlingit. It's pretty fun, because if you say, I'm going to color it blue, right? And so we had some fun with that the other day. There's also rules for playing Sorry, the board game Sorry in Tlingit. When you could say, Keshchet, Keshchet, Ijak, or Keshchet, Keshchet, Ijak, don't kill me. So there's different, you just have a lot of fun. Keshtetus on, you're not nice. And there's a lot of different, so you get a lot of trash talking phrases, which are just fun to know and to learn. Hey, come
Hello
on.
there, thank you. And I'm here with a box of Cyril's photos, and the door is locked.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Is there anybody? You can,
Yeah.
you can go to AA. Thank you very much. Use your muscles too.
And so there's a variety of ways. There's the stories. One project we're going to work on over the next couple months as well is getting the audio for all of the Downhauer stories that they've published and making sure that audio is available. So probably by the weekend, I'll have two of them up there. One is Ta, which is the mosquito story by Robert Zubov, and the other one is Duktut, which is the strong man, but it really means like charcoal stained skin, dark skin. But I'll have those two. Duktut is pretty fun because the story actually the audio keeps going for a little ways. And there's some things in Tlingit that are just kind of fun and funny. And we'll also talk today about different resources you can dive into if you want to peek ahead at what the future holds for your study in Tlingit. Especially if you're interested in grammar structures, or there's so much work being done in Tlingit right now. We're in a really scary position, but we're also very fortunate. We have 4 linguists that are very active in Tlingit. There's Auki Shabu, Carrie Eggleston, who lives here in Juneau and does amazing verb documentation work. So when Nation Story wrote the Yellow Dictionary, the Tlingit Verb Dictionary, there are some things that people didn't understand fully how the Tlingit verb worked. Because if you wanted a verb, you would get a few forms. You need these forms in order to figure out how that verb works, because there's these hidden variables that don't come out in certain forms. And they usually just said, I think it was practical. Most of their goal was to get, how would you say it happened, it's happening, it will happen, or make it happen. But they didn't do all of those for every verb. But some of the sample sentences in there are just awesome. If you read some of those sample sentences, like, they're going to throw you in the boiler, right? That's a crazy sentence. And then, so she's collecting all these verb forms. She also has a dissertation called 575 plus Tlingit verbs, which really just talks about the ins and outs of Tlingit grammatical structure. And it's a great read, and she really breaks it down really well. Zeosh, James Crippen, is really doing a lot to figure out the inner workings of Tlingit. And so, because I work closely with him, I'm usually adjusting the ways that I teach and the ways that we look at things, including this new classifier chart, which we're test driving, and I'll explain that. I just emailed it to the gang. It was a little late, but and then he's finishing his PhD in Tlingit. He's Deshitan from Wrangell. He speaks a Southern Tlingit. He's done a really good job of figuring out what Southern Tlingit is and speaking that mode of Tlingit, keeping that dialect going. And then he's just doing phenomenal work as far as figuring out how to, both Carrie and James work on developing codes to help sort of understand how the language works, so that if you can read this code, you figure out how to fill in the blanks, you can conjugate that verb.
Where's he's getting a PhD in Tlingit from?
Vancouver.
Oh, really?
If you guys ever want to just go to Vancouver,
At UBC?
yeah, and shout, let me know, because I'll give you his contact information. Go visit him. He's awesome. He comes here several times a year as well. And then there's Tutukon Seth Cable. He's at the University of Massachusetts, and he's a professor of linguistics there. And he does a lot of work on Tlingit, and he tends to come in the summer and do these big research projects, and he's doing some both he and James do some really upper level stuff. Like James will try and figure out, James's goal is to usually take the language as far as you can before it doesn't work anymore. Like, try how many clauses can you put into a sentence. Like, Jim was walking to the store with Betty. Jim was walking to the store with Betty eating an apple. Jim was walking to the store with Betty eating an apple and talking about her radio. And they'll just keep it. And how much stuff can you put in before it won't allow things? So he tries to find things that are deliberately ungrammatical, figure out where the boundaries are.
Can I bring in some cupcakes?
Yeah.
Aw.
I'm sorry, everybody online. Someone just brought us cupcakes.
Happy finals, folks.
But
If I'm gonna get chubby, I'm not gonna get chubby on you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yay ha next. We're all getting chubby.
I don't like saying chubby. Maybe I'm just pleasantly plump. Sometimes I'm not so pleasant about it, but that makes it pleasant. Yeah.
Okay, good dish.
Oh.
And so I think Seth, James, I think it's usually they both look at really technical aspects, like how do you tie clauses together? Because Tlingit has specific ways of doing that. I am this because of that. And there's a way to break down how that functions. Or we can go to the store once Barbara gets out of the shower, right? And so to have these clauses that are dependent on each other, and you look at those types of things. And then there's Alice Taft Wudashita, and she does a lot of probably social linguistics, like developing projects that really help with language documentation and promoting the language and making it accessible, and working with the Dowenhauers and their collection. So we're very fortunate to have that group of linguists. And we had Dick Dowenhauer as well, who did a lot of these types of things. His forte was really like the stories and with curriculum development, working with Nora. And then Jeff Lear, Weha, or second name. Yates. Oh, bad on me. Weha. He is retired and working in other languages, I believe down in New Mexico. And he's done just a tremendous job over the years, documenting Tlingit verbs, developing ways that we can talk about Tlingit grammar, really just sort of cracking a lot of the ways that the language functions. And he was doing his linguistic work at a time when there was just such a collection of incredible speakers. Now we have maybe And there's probably 100 people who really speak Tlingit. There's probably 25 to 30 fluent speakers who are working to teach the language right now or to document it. And that's our sort of pool. And then there's probably 20 to 25 either teachers or up and coming teachers. So we're just trying to get those numbers higher. But because of that, you only end up with about maybe a dozen people who could do anything with the language, tell stories, tell you what, you could take them all these verbs. There's all these verbs, There's a specific verb for an animal to beach itself, right? It's different, And then there's specific verbs for like an if, when the if says something is going to happen to this person. And so there's, as we sort of talk about how grammar works, I think it's really fun because there's the number 4 is sacred. You see it in the stories. He did this to his 8 joints. This happened 4 times, and when somebody said this this number 4 tends to pop up a lot. There's 4 classifier groups. There's 4 conjugation prefixes. But the number 3 also pops up a lot. There's 3 possibilities for stem variation. When you look at Tlingit, how the verbs work. So you can take a sentence or a string of things, and sometimes there's multiple sort of things that are being put together in one sentence. We can isolate them into their individual parts, right? We can go to the store when Barbara gets out of the shower, right? And so those are sort of 2 primary components. And so what you do is you sort of learn how to isolate these things, and this is an act of translation. You translate so you can figure out how to produce the language at a later time. And the key should always be language production. We have lots and lots of people who can understand an awful lot of Tlingit, but then they'll respond mostly in English. And so getting your mind to be able to put these parts together, it's something that's sort of like exercise, and so the more you try it, you start to get there, to the point where, you start to think about it a lot, or at least you're able to start putting these pieces together and say, oh, well, let me tell you what happened to me yesterday. Let me tell you what I saw on the way here. So, thinking about how to keep the language around you. We'll just go over a couple of resources real quick. I'm going to turn the screen sharing on here. And then we'll get to our review session. We go to tlingit.info. The goal of this website was to really just try and put all the resources in one place, and then it just sort of just grew from there. There's an introduction here, which is some words about learning Tlingit. Here's some information on the Tlingit language. If you want to learn Tlingit, and I'll work on I fell behind on keeping up with this stuff, but there's beginning Tlingit, intermediate, and then Tlingit linguistics, which are the 3 things that I teach. And what my goal was to sort of link every class and keep every handout there, so that if you wanted to sort of review some of the class sessions that we did, all of our classes are going to be up here for beginning Tlingit. Under lessons, the lessons here, this part needs some development, but the idea is to put a bunch of curriculum in one location so that people can find it easily, use it. Whenever I develop curriculum, Carcross Tagish First Nations has hired me to do this. Skull Belt Heritage Foundation has hired me to do this. I do this for my work for UAS. But I usually specifically tell these organizations, I say, I'm happy to do this, but the only stipulations that I have is that no one can copyright this material and anybody can use this material. And so I'm happy to give original files if people want to change it. I'm working with Sitka to make sure that we're honoring some of their dialects. And one of the things is they don't want to say kuwati, they want to say kuyati. So that to me is really interesting, that it's not rounding over there. Um, and so, but we always want to honor the dialects and say, okay, well, let's make sure that if we're in Sitka, we're teaching the way that Sitka talks. We're in Yakutat, we teach the way that Yakutat talks. We honor these, test them. Under resources, we'll just go there. So under resources, there's beginning materials, intermediate materials, and advanced materials, maybe some bonus stuff. And this is where I keep the curriculum that we work on for this class. So this is the workbook that we have. It's in a continuous state of error finding. Starting next semester, we'll start with, the goal is to get through all of beginning Tlingit. And so there's a lot of different verbs and stuff that we start working on, conjugating a lot more. Chacha, icha, acha. I'm eating, you're eating, he or she is eating. And so we'll work on a set of verbs where we can conjugate all of them, usually in what we call the imperfective form. So it's like it's happening right now. There's sound practice on here, the dictionary of Tlingit, the Tlingit verb dictionary. It's really handy to have electronic versions of these, because then you can do searches. For example, there's these two thematic prefixes, ka and ka. There's actually three of them, ka, and ka. They sound the same, but they're all three different things. And conveniently, one is a flat surface and one is a spherical surface. They're the exact same sound. I'm like, sure, bring it on. But it's good to have those. And then I think, so some of the things you can do to get yourself ready for more grammar stuff as well is to read the introduction to the Tlingit verb dictionary. How did people look at Tlingit grammar 40 years ago? It's a lot different than how we look at it now, but it will give you some of the building blocks and also show you what they're able to do. Nation story, they could speak Tlingit. So it was really amazing work that they did. The interior Tlingit dictionary, this has more nouns than the Tlingit verb dictionary does. It's a great resource. It's a great dictionary. It's written in the Inland Tlingit, which I don't think we went over. We didn't go over the differences in here. It's pretty straightforward, the differences. Tlingit Trinachsa, which we all have. There's a Tlingit clan, the list of Tlingit clans, which you already have in the beginning Tlingit workbook. Weather cards, which you guys have, and we've been working on those. And then this is everything, but I'll probably get rid of that link with everything else. So. When we get to intermediate Tlingit, there's a book that I was working on, Understanding Tlingit Verbs, which is based, it was born out of intermediate Tlingit, which never fully got finished. I was doing some updates to that while I was teaching intermediate Tlingit, and then I kind of wanted to rethink the way that verbs were approached and sort of just restructure a few different things. So I just started a project based on that. And it's been funded by Gold Belt Heritage Foundation, who also, in partnership with Sealaska Heritage Institute, funded this 575 Tlingit Verbs project. And the website for the verbs is just amazing. So one of the things, you actually don't have to, you should certainly learn how to conjugate Tlingit verbs. But in the meantime, you're not limited. So there's two sections here. There's English to Tlingit and Tlingit to English. And so you can go find the verb for these various things. I always go Tlingit to English though. I just think it's a better way to go. But if we took a look at, say, eating, and so the one snag with this website is it's set up with a font called Bookman Taku. So if some of these characters, like if the underline X shows up as a Y, I can't remember what it looks like. It's like a Y with an accent mark over it or something like that. But if it doesn't look like an underline X, it's ha. Let me know and I can I'll send you the font. So as we click here, we've got awaha, atwaha, yachayosicha. So this is showing you the verb in the perfective state, third person perfective state, and third person object as well. So when we click on the verb, it's going to give us a variety of verb forms with the option of hearing it. So here's the command form, ha, eat it. Don't eat it. I am eating it. I don't eat it, or I'm not eating it. And on and on. And so there's a variety. There's usually about 12 to 15 verb modes. We call them modes in Tlingit. The name of the mode is given here, like imperfective, decessive. And then the translation for that mode is given here. Didn't, used to, do. And Tlingit grammar gets really, it gets really complex. And it's really fun to see how these different forms are put together. And as you go further, we'll learn how these forms specifically work, so you can take good guesses on how to put them together. There's no way he or she can go over. And some of these are also conjugated, not all of them, some of them are conjugated for person as well. So say, I'm eating it, you're eating it, he or she's eating it. We're eating it, y'all are eating it, they're eating it, someone eats it. And so there's a wide variety of forms. It's a wonderful, wonderful resource. The other thing to get here is there's some descriptions of these verb tenses, which you can look at. And then there's also this link for prefix combination. So as we go down, for example, we talked a little bit about the perfective and the future. So if we looked at the future, and it can be overwhelming when you're first looking at this stuff. But if you find the classifier here, so if the classifier was 0 for the 0 group, and this is first person singular, so you say p, and then what comes after that hyphen is the verb root. So you attach the root to the end, and now you just conjugated the verb. And so it's really neat to have these resources. I didn't have when I was learning Tlingit. Spoiled brat. But it's great to have these, and it's, you take your little baby steps to figure out how to get to these points where you can use this. The Verbal Structure Handbook by James Crippen is awesome. We'd geek out every time like a new version came out, but he's in dissertation mode, so an update's probably not coming for a long time, but it's wonderful. It has, if you think of the verb, as you move from the left side of the verb to the right side of the verb, there's over 20 different locations where things could be, and he really breaks down, starting from, if you're reading the book, you print it as a booklet. You go left to right, and it's like you're going from the left side of the verb to the right side of the verb. And there's tons of awesome information. So we get into advanced materials. I've got some verb mode tables. So I've tried to break down verbs into different forms. Like, here's a huge list of verbs organized by groups. Here's a big list of verbs organized by classifier. Here's a big list of verbs organized by conjugation. Just so you can sort of start to put these things together, how they might work a little different. Here's the dissertation and examples by Carrie Eggleston. So that whole 575 Tlingit verbs, if you're going somewhere to study Tlingit, like a language camp or something, you can print her dissertation in the verb paradigms, and you would have that entire thing with you. And you have to look it up by hand, which sometimes goes a little slower. Tlingitology seminar lecture notes. This is really comprehensive. It's a discussion that Zeosh gave to other linguists about the technicalities of Tlingit and how it functions. And it's really good. Tlingit glossing guide, relative clauses. The one area that I would come and I would really take a look at is these two. They're in the advanced category. The Tlingit verbs notes is really worth checking out. I'll open it on my computer and then I'll drag it over to the screen. And then we'll do some drilling after that. So when you first encounter a verb and somebody says it to you, like if they say "sheshakat," "sheshakat se woke up," or if they just said "akat se woke up," then the thing that you learn to when someone says that As you're listening to it, the thing you learn how to pull out is where the verb is. Anybody got a guess on where that verb is? So that is the verb root. So that is what you'd look up. You'd look up. And as you came to that verb root, so talking about how to, let me open this. I discovered, like, when I was in high school, a long time ago, decades ago, I discovered I cannot chew gum and walk and drink something at the same time. It just like splashed all over my face. I was like, okay, I guess 2 is my maximum. I can walk and drink something. I could walk and chew gum, or I could chew gum and sit still and drink something. But I couldn't do it. So we'll look at these notes real quick, and what you really got here is a bunch of tablets that have been scanned, and a whole bunch of notes in here. It's really fun to just sort of look through this stuff, and even if it's sort of mystifying in some ways, but this is an excellent resource to have. Because if you encounter a verb, one of the first things that you should do is if you encounter a verb, you would go to the dictionary of Tlingit. And here's the dictionary of Tlingit, and someone said, "Akat se wo." So you said, "Oh, well, I heard the verb root." So se wo was the verb itself. So we go to the X pinched, and we would find it right there. Akat se wo, to forget. And we see the object pronoun right there. So I said, akat se wo, chat, I forgot, right? I forgot. And so that's one way to look it up is here. And if there was a verb, think of one that's not in here, that's in the yellow one.
Knock.
Knock, like to rock.
To bait hooks.
Oh, okay, yeah, so knock. So we come here to the ends and we're looking around and we see knock. Knock is in there.
Is it?
But we see knock for medicine, but if someone said, "Khat would knock," you know, it's like, well, what is that? Would knock? I heard that part of the end. So then you would come to the let's Tlingit stuff. The Tlingit verb dictionary. So in the Tlingit verb dictionary, when we're looking at this thing, and you know, it helps. I haven't picked up a printed version except, you know, grabbing one from a student in class if somebody asked me something in a long time. When I have them electronically, and you put them on your tablets if you have one, you put them on your smartphone if you have one and have the room. The verb dictionary is not that big. Some of the other ones, like the noun dictionary, is pretty big. Jeff Lear's notes is pretty big. So, this is an awesome verb. Hoots. You put the brown bear inside you and dominate it. Like, you know, if you're gonna go play sports, or you're gonna go do something, you can say, hoots. I'm gonna put the brown bear inside myself. Go dominate something. Love that verb. So hoots can be a verb. Yech can also be a verb. I'm going to talk about that. It means I'm going to act like I know what I'm doing, but I don't know what I'm doing. Right? That's ravening right there. So anyways, so what we've got here is we've got an alphabetical English to Tlingit, A to Z. So you look something up, and they also got some really great cross references. So if you're looking for accept, then it says, oh, well, look up believe or receive, you know. And they write the verbs somewhat differently. This is something we discovered yesterday, was they write the future form differently. So we actually have to fix that future verb for it's going to snow heavy. But we almost went crazy. We didn't have to. So next they have a section which is listed by verb roots. The movement now has been to put the Tlingit to English stuff at the beginning. So the newer stuff usually comes out, and the Tlingit is first, and the English is just supplementary, right? Because when we develop language resources, we're focused on the people who are really learning the language. If someone wants to look up the word for dog, that's fine. But they just get like a few pages to work with, where the learners get the whole majority of the book to work with. But the one thing to remember with when you're looking up roots, there's different things that folks have done. Like I put little tabs on the root section of my verb dictionary, and I wrote the root so I could look it up really fast. Shawu was the first one I'd seen who took her verb book apart and put a little spiral bound on it so that you can look through it pretty quickly. So when they put the root section on here, how is it organized? It goes period H Y W N D T T apostrophe D Z T S T S apostrophe. So instead of going alphabetical, they went from sounds in the front of the mouth to sounds in the back of the throat. So that's how it's organized. Nowadays, we just sort of modify the English alphabet to go A, C H apostrophe. And so we just work our way through that. And then when you get to the underlined ones, you go K apostrophe, or no, K W, K apostrophe W, underline K W, underline K apostrophe, underline K apostrophe. So that's the sort of order as far as being alphabetical nowadays. So then if we were to look up here, then we would find the N's. And also, I don't know, their vowels go E, A, I don't know. Okay. Then we go N, E, I, and O, O. And we find it right here. Now to medicate. Right? You're medicining somebody. Right? So there's a lot of cases where a noun can just become a verb. And we'll see how that works as we start to diagnose these things a little bit more. And there's, as far as verb roots go, I think Shawu probably has maybe 300 or 400 roots, and there's probably, try to count them. I guess we should count them. There's maybe 1,000, a couple thousand that are in the verb dictionary. But then there's certain things. Okay, ich. Someone says that verb. Oh, ich. Right? And then you're like, what does that mean? And so you went to the dictionary of Tlingit, and you looked L apostrophe either EEL, and let's say let's put it long. That's good. But then there's no LEEL apostrophe. There's no LIL apostrophe, I don't think. So that's it. So then you go to the verb dictionary and you look up L apostrophe. There's EEK, EEX, not here. The other thing is when you look up verb roots, the first thing you look up is you look up the long and low form of it. So if someone says a kaushit, you would look up heat. You go from, if you hear it short, hit, then you remember with the long combination, I to the long thing. So now we'll go to the Lear notes. And this one, if you go, I don't know how it works on a PC, but if you have a Mac, you look at the table of contents. If you have like the Adobe Reader, I think it's on the left-hand side. You can look at I don't know if they call it table of contents. And again, this is sort of a similar thing, I think, but H is not in the front of the mouth. I don't know how it's out. But here's L apostrophe, and then LE, I guess, zoom in. rabbit hole. Huh. Oh, I know it's in here. Dang it. I forgot it. Huh.
Finished it on Tuesday.
Oh, I guess there. Anyways, I know it's in there. It's been fine, but it is the verb to poop, and this is the only place where you're going to find the pooping verbs and the peeing verbs and the all kind ejaculating. You name it, it's in here. Nursing. There's all kinds of things that probably were decidedly left out. But it's my opinion of the Yellow Dictionary. It was written by missionaries. There's certain things that they're not going to and it's hard. It's hard to find elders who will give you some of these verb forms. But there's also, think about how metaphorical Tlingit is. And we're talking to Dacia about this, and she's talking about things her mother used to say when she was going out. And she would say, the literal translation would be, you be careful out there, or you're going to be dragging it around. What do you think that means? I'll entertain one guess before it's done.
I like karma.
What her mom was saying was, be cautious or you're going to have a baby.
Oh.
Right? That's what she was saying. And, dragging it around. What it translates. All right.
I'm glad you entertained it.
So let's start going through this whole thing, everything that we've done so far. And we're not going to be able to grow. There's only a few minutes left. But maybe anybody got any questions? Are we okay?
Well, yesterday when I was trying to introduce myself to the elder, I said I forgot the Tlingit language.
Oh, you say, I don't know.
I don't know Tlingit. That's what I said. Never mind. My question's never
You need
mind.
to learn how to say, I know how to say, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking too. And then I woke up this morning thinking about Tlingit, and it was, I don't remember how I said it, but it was like, I'm a child of forgetting Tlingit language. I don't know.
Nice.
It was pretty interesting. I don't remember how I put it together, it's probably wrong, but the words are there, it felt like.
cut say I'm a child of forgetting.
That's not how I put it together, but nice. Thank you.
Yeah, but so if you have a chance to speak with elders, you can say my school name. Or you could just say and then you could say so you say, I'm learning Tlingit, and I think that'll communicate a lot to the elder. All right. Sort of reiterating things that we've done this semester. We'll finish this tomorrow. We'll get through this whole thing, and we'll give you guys a mission. We'll talk about this new classifier handout and why it's changing. The thing to remember here, the way that vowel pairs work, right? We go short to long, A to double A, E to EI, I to EE, U to OO. And it's going to move back and forth, especially now that we're going to get to more verbs. We're going to see this, where if the root is he for something to run, it might be he, it might be he, it might be he. Those are your three options. And you're going to see it move back and forth. And so we'll just start to just take note of these certain things as we review the stuff that we've learned. We'll say, okay, well now we've learned a few more ways to look at verbs. So as we go back and practice these verbs again, we're going to talk about how they work. We're just going to sort of untangle a few things. We'll do 3 minutes of sound practice just to make sure that we've done some Tlingit. This will be taught. Wasus,
Wasus,
Masus,
Masus,
Cheech,
Cheech,
E,
Cheat,
Da,
Da,
Glade,
Plate,
Zait,
Zait,
Jen,
Jumbo,
Shush,
Huge,
Choo,
True,
Nusk,
Nusk,
Seek,
Seek,
Speak,
Speak,
Shaw,
Shaw,
Tia,
Tia,
Ta,
Ta,
Klesu,
Klesu,
E,
Eek,
Sa,
Saw,
Tsati,
Tsatsi,
Yak,
Yak,
Gooch,
Gooch,
Cost,
Cost,
Inchei,
Inche,
Khasha,
Khasha,
Hawk,
Hawk,
Washa,
Washa,
On Quay,
Quay,
Yak,
Yak,
Quat,
Quat,
Zisk,
Zisk,
Khwasta,
Quasta,
Ga,
Ga,
Khun,
Quan,
Zi,
Zi,
Quch,
Kuch,
Kuk,
Kuk,
Atish,
Kake,
Khat,
Hot,
On,
Con,
Buena,
Buena,
Quan,
Con,
Na,
Na,
Ek,
Quet,
Shek,
Shek,
Shanachwai,
Shanachwai,
Duhun,
Duhun,
Khwat,
Quad,
Nek,
Nek,
Yana E,
Yana, Eight,
Hit,
Hit, I remember doing all that at the beginning of the semester. Some of those sounds were so intimidating at
Yeah.
first.
right? We had to like do them like a whole bunch of times. There'll be some of them that you'll still have to practice. The can hang people up, But just with time, especially if you can just listen to a lot of Tlingit, it's really interesting because like sometimes there's these mental barriers, which is we're trying. There's a group of us, and especially at the advice of King Listi, we're trying to say that we're not trying not to say that Tlingit is hard or making this sound is hard. But instead, we're just going to say, this is really fun, or this is where it gets really complex. And it's not like we're saying a different word for the same thing, but we're trying to change our approach to it. Because if you kind of say, oh man, this is hard, then you've convinced yourself already that that's how it's going to be. And so a lot of things, especially if you can just, and as we go further along, we'll try and put ourselves in more situations to just say Tlingit, even if we're just going around the room and all just saying something it's not a linear conversation, that's just fun. And then we're just sort of engaging ourselves in the language. And so having those recordings, downloading them, listening to them as much as you can will really help, because you'll just catch the rhythm of the language and you'll catch these sounds. And the more you put that around yourself, the more your body will just sort of figure out that's what we're doing now. And you'll see that there's different speakers too that, we were talking about this yesterday, Chucky and I. There's times when speakers, they don't do the gutturals as hard as we do sometimes because we overemphasize as we're learning. And so you'll hear sometimes their gutturals, they're loud. It's not so pronounced. It's more fluid in their speech. And these are things, and so I will encourage you guys to find ways to engage with Tlingit language speakers as well. The one thing I've consistently heard from speakers of Tlingit is they've told me in various ways that they're lonely and that it's getting hard for them to speak Tlingit because they don't have opportunities to speak it anymore. So if you're engaging a Tlingit speaker, find one in the community. Say, hey, can I come visit you? Can I, and make sure that you're doing something for them. Can I bring you some groceries from the store? Bring you a few things for the house, or can I do your dishes today and you just speak to me in the language? Can I bring you some coffee? Find out things that elder really likes. They really like, sweet rolls or donuts or apples or whatever it is, and bring them some of that, and just sort of make a showing of your appreciation. And then when you're there, and if you're engaging with them, trying to convince them to just speak to me in the language, even if you think I don't understand. I just want to be around somebody where I'm physically hearing it. And if we make that more of a part of our lives, we're bringing that language community closer together. Find places where they're speaking in the language. The library thing will still be going on Monday nights down at the downtown library. Every other Saturday, there'll be a gathering at the Northern Light Church in the evening. Gold Belt has a number of things going on. We're going to try and get the community language calendar together. We'll send a link out to you guys.
Kune,
Yeah.
there's also the Wednesday language gatherings at Gaja Hit.
Goodness, sheesh. Are those open for everybody?
They are.
Okay.
Yeah, they've been pretty small so far, but we'd like to open them up.
Good. I guess I had a misunderstanding. I was going to send out an invite to a bunch of students, and somebody told me it was invite only. So if the invitations come from you, then we're all coming.
Okay.
Yes, that's Wednesday nights at Gaja Hit.
4:30 to 6:30.
Goodness, sheesh. All right.
Yesterday I was outside and I heard Marcia talking about there's some Tlingit elders who speak with wildflower. And I didn't get a chance to come up and ask her about it because I was on the way to the bus.
Dang, I had Colin. I was supposed to go do a presentation. I totally blew it.
Is there any possible way that I can just walk in there and
Yeah.
do exactly what it
Yeah,
is?
I would say, find something to bring. Bring some, I don't know.
Lipton.
Yeah, bring some Lipton, some Folgers, some pilot bread. Those are really good starters for
Salmon dip.
Salmon dip. So salmon dip and pilot bread. Can't go like,
I'll open anyone's door.
I don't know if I'll be able to get it there. Harper.
But yeah, I think it's a great idea. All right. Well, tomorrow's the last. Wait, what's today?
Today is the last.
Today's the last.
It's Wednesday, right?
So much for reviewing everything. I guess that's everything we did. So we'll see you guys on Tuesday, 12:30 to 2:30. It's been an awesome semester. It's been a challenging semester.
Same room?
But it's been good. Huh?
Same room.
Yep, we're here. 12:30 to 2:30, and we'll do words first. John, we never even. Oh well, we'll get here and figure out the order, and we'll just go in that order. 12:30. Sheesh. Email me if you got questions. That's hilarious.
Kune
That's
wants to do